Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5 begins with Jaime washing ashore, like Aragorn in Two Towers, but instead of a sexy dream elf to wake him, he's got Bronn.
Listen to me, cunt.
Bronn points out the obvious. The Lannisters can't beat Daenerys with her 3 dragons, so Jaime goes to Cersei and says they can't win this war. But Cersei won't surrender. She says there's too much bad blood to make peace. Cersei won't forgive Tyrion for killing her father Tywin. Dany won't forgive Jaime for killing her father Aerys. And Cersei refuses to let go of the Iron Throne. Tyrion Lannister walks through the ashes of his family's army, and he seems to feel some regret. Then again, Tyrion did promise Cersei that one day he'd turn her joy to ashes. Perhaps that day has come. Tyrion turned Cersei's power to dust. The Lannister army was also the pride of Tyrion's hated father Tywin. Maybe Tyrion feels some satisfaction wiping the last trace of his father's legacy. Daenerys tells the surviving Lannisters that she's not there to burn or murder, and then she murders Randall and Dickon by burning them in front of their men. Tyrion's a bit worried that this sends mixed messages. Good leaders sometimes do have to kill disloyal lords. Robb and Jon both did. But burning a father and son alive reminds people of Dany's father Mad Aerys, who killed Rickard and Brandon Stark. It's a delicate balance between being a strong leader and looking like a terrible tyrant, especially with the memory of Aerys hanging over you. Dany talks about making the world better and breaking the wheel, a metaphor for stopping the cycle of conflict in Westeros and changing the political system somehow. It's not really clear what kind of changes Dany wants to make. Remember, this is her first day on the Westerosi mainland. She's a stranger to this country. She doesn't know its problems, so how can she hope to reshape society for the better? Look what she did in Meereen. She came to a foreign city, destroyed its social structure, banned slavery, made herself queen, and tried to make everything fair. And it was a disaster. The Sons of the Harpy revolted, the slavers attacked in force, and Dany ended up leaving with Daario in charge. Since we haven't heard any updates from Daario's Democratic Republic of the Bay of Dragons lately, it's probably fair to assume that things have turned bad in Meereen, just like they did in Astapor and Yunkai. The point is, Dany's speech may be good political rhetoric, but we know that ruling Westeros won't be so simple. Dany returns to Dragonstone, and Jon has a moment with her dragon Drogon. In the books, it's hinted that dragons tend to be more friendly to people who have Targaryen blood, so maybe Drogon is nice to Jon because Jon is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. Then again, the dragons were also cool with Tyrion, and he's not a Targaryen, probably, so this might not necessarily mean a whole lot. Dany asks again about Jon's death, and Jon avoids the question again. Dany's going to have to find out sometime about Jon's resurrection. She's had a magical rebirth or two herself, so she probably would understand. Dany and Jon are fire and ice, and sometime they're going to have to recognize it. But they're interrupted by the arrival of Jorah, now healed of his grayscale. Dany and Jorah have a long and complicated history. Dany exiled Jorah in Season 4 for reporting on her to Varys. He returned to her briefly in Season 5, but she didn't forgive him for a while. They reunited in Season 6, but Jorah had grayscale and had to get cured, and now he's back once again. Jorah loves Dany, and in the books this comes off as creepy. Dany's a teenager, and Jorah's this fugly middle-aged man who hits on her because she looks like his ex-wife. But still, Jorah has stayed loyal to Dany longer than anyone else has. They've been through a lot together, so Dany wants him by her side. In the north, Bran uses his magic powers to take control of a bunch of ravens. He flies them over the wall and looks at the army of the dead until the Night King seems to break Bran's control. If the Night King can break Bran's control of ravens, could Bran break the Night King's control of the zombies? Just deactivate the whole army of the dead at once? That'd be handy. But we still don't really know how this magic works. It does seem that Bran and the Night King use a similar kind of magic, which might suggest that this human who became the Night King years ago was originally a Greenseer, like Bran and Bloodraven. In the books, Bran sees a vision of the bones of other dreamers impaled on ice. Maybe the other White Walkers were originally Greenseers who turned to the icy dark side of Old Gods magic under Night King Darth Vader or something. After all this time, the Walkers are still super mysterious, so it'll be awesome to find out more about what they are and what they want. Bran sees that the Walkers are marching on Eastwatch, the easternmost castle on the Wall. Emphasis on the wall. Eastwatch is behind it, and the wall is protected with magic which apparently stops the dead getting through, so they probably can't just bash down the gate with an undead giant. How, then, will the walkers pass the wall? In the opening credits of past episodes, the ocean by the wall has looked frozen over, so some people think that they could maybe just walk around atop the sea, or maybe do an underwater Pirates of the Caribbean thing. It probably would have been easier, though, for the dead to just go west instead, because to the west the wall ends, and there's a bridge across a gorge. Why not cross there? The walkers must have some special plan to get past Eastwatch, so Bran sends out some letters to warn everyone. Down at the Citadel, the Maesters want to see evidence before they freak out about magic zombies, which in the real world would be very reasonable, but in fantasy, skeptics are wrong. The Maesters mention other prophets from the past, like Jenny of Oldstones. Jenny was a mysterious common woman who married a Targaryen prince about 50 years ago. Jenny was friends with a witch, now known as the Ghost of Highheart, who said that the prince that was promised, or Azor Ahai, would be born from the line of Aerys and Rhaegar, which means that either Daenerys or Jon could be the hero to save the world. Looks like Jenny was probably right. The Maesters also mention a guy called Lodos. 300 years ago, when the Targaryens took the Iron Islands, Lodos claimed he was the son of the drowned god, and that krakens would rise up to destroy Aegon's fleet. That didn't happen, and Lodos led a mass suicide. But in the books, krakens have been seen recently, and it's looking like Book Euron might just turn himself into some kinda Cthulhu, so maybe even Lodos was onto something. Point is, both of the Archmaesters' examples of prophecy being wrong might actually have elements of truth, but they still don't believe in the White Walkers. This frustrates Sam so much that he abandons his dream of becoming a maester, steals some books, and heads north to somehow help in the War for the Dawn. He presumably brings the sword Heartsbane with him. Sam's father Randall won't be needing it anymore. There's not much love lost between Randall and Sam, but Dickon seemed alright, so Sam might mourn the loss of his brother. Before Sam leaves, though, Gilly quietly drops the biggest revelation of the season. She reads in a book that a Septon annulled the marriage of Prince Rhaegar and married him to someone else in a secret ceremony in Dorne. What this means is that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, Daenerys' older brother, set aside his marriage to Elia Martell and secretly married Lyanna Stark, who gave birth to Jon Snow in Dorne. Fans have speculated for years that something like this had happened, because this means that Jon Snow is not really a bastard. He's the legitimate child of Prince Rhaegar, making him the legitimate heir of King Aerys, meaning Jon Snow should be the king of all Westeros. This complicates the situation with Jon's aunt Daenerys, who also claims the throne. No one in the story actually knows all of this, though, so we'll have to wait until Bran or someone figures it out. At Dragonstone, Tyrion and Varys worry that Dany might become a bad ruler like her father Aerys, and Varys doesn't seem to know what to do about this. Varys used to seem so powerful, a secretive schemer, spymaster and spider who knew everything and made everyone his puppet. But now that he's revealed his hand and made his loyalties clear, Varys is just a bald guy in a dressing gown hoping for the best. He did always say that power is an illusion. Jon and Dany and Tyrion work out a plan. Jon will lead a team beyond the wall to capture a zombie and bring it down to King's Landing to show Cersei, so that Cersei will help them, or at least not attack them or something, when they go back north to fight against the dead. And this plan is bad. It's a huge risk to King Jon, and he's the guy uniting the North and the Wildlings and Daenerys. And if they succeed in catching a zombie, there's no guarantee it'll stay animated on the long journey south. It might rot, or get out of range of the walker's magic, or just stop moving. Even if all that works out, all they'd actually achieve is to show Cersei a zombie. Why would Cersei be impressed when she's already got a zombie, the Mountain? One zombie doesn't prove the threat of the army of the dead. Even if Cersei does believe it, does anyone really think that Cersei would make peace with her enemies for the sake of the greater good? Even if she does, what will her help even be worth? Dany just roasted a Lannister army. How many men can Cersei have left? How useful will soldiers be against the army of the dead anyway? The best way to beat the dead would surely be Dany's dragons. Why not just fly up and burn them all now? Or if you just want to capture a zombie, why not swoop down with a dragon and grab one? The answer to these questions, of course, is the same reason that eagles don't fly Frodo to Mount Doom. It'd be too easy and too quick. But part of what makes Game of Thrones special, and different to fantasies like Lord of the Rings, is that behind all the dragons and zombies, there's usually a strong logic to the plot. People make decisions that make sense, and this convoluted, dangerous, probably pointless plan does not make much sense. At Winterfell, the Lords of the North and the Vale speak in support of Sansa. It almost sounds like they want to declare her their queen, when only last season they declared Jon their king. Before that, they mostly supported the Boltons, and before that, they supported Robb Stark. Seems they can't go a whole season without wanting to change sides. Arya accuses Sansa of undermining Jon and wanting power for herself. Sansa tries to be reasonable, but Arya just won't listen. It makes sense that Arya doesn't really get the politics. She has spent seasons training with assassins, not learning diplomacy. But this seems rooted in something deeper for Arya. She criticizes Sansa for loving pretty things and feeling superior, which connects to the jealousy and resentment Arya had for Sansa growing up, over how Sansa was perfect and pretty while Arya never fit. Maybe the real reason for Arya's aggression is all this old anger. Whatever the reason, Littlefinger sees an opportunity. He manipulates Arya into finding an old letter that Cersei made Sansa write supporting King Joffrey and condemning the Starks. This wasn't really Sansa's fault. She was just a kid and she had no real choice. But this might work as a way for Peter to isolate Sansa from the rest of her family, to create chaos and division which he can use to gain more influence. This is some classic Peter Baelish evil scheming, and in the short term it might just work. But in the long term, Sansa can just explain how she was forced to write the letter, Arya can figure out that Peter misled her, and Bran can reveal that he's magically seen every evil thing Littlefinger's done. So Littlefinger's fucked, but at least he gets one last lurk in. Tyrion and Davos arrive at King's Landing, and Davos mentions the death of his son Mathos in Season 2. Davos has a wife and kids back home, and he often thinks about them in the books. But while everyone else complains about their personal drama all the time, Davos usually keeps things to himself and carries on his duty. But he still remembers his friends. Davos goes and meets with Gendry, the bastard son of King Robert, who was last seen rowing in Season 3 after Melisandre tried to burn him. Gendry wields a warhammer, just like his father did, decorated with the stag of his house. It looks like Gendry identifies with his father's family, the Baratheons. Maybe after the war is won, he'll rule the Baratheon seat of Storm's End, since every other Baratheon is dead. As the son of King Robert, though, Gendry could also potentially have a claim on the Iron Throne, which, as Davos says, complicates the situation with Jon and Dany. Meanwhile, Tyrion goes to meet Jaime. Tyrion tries to justify the killing of their father Tywin, but Jaime doesn't want to hear it, and threatens to kill Tyrion. The brothers' relationship in the books is even worse. They parted on bad terms, with Tyrion lying and saying he killed Joffrey. So their reunion in the books might be a lot darker. Anyway, Tyrion gets to the point and asks Jaime to convince Cersei to peacefully meet with Dany and Jon. On the way out, Davos and co have some trouble with gold cloaks. It really was a big risk coming here in broad daylight with the super recognizable imp. They could easily have all been caught and killed by Cersei, but Gendry solves their problems with his hammer, and they get away. Jaime reveals to Cersei that he met Tyrion, and Cersei reveals to Jaime that she already knew and allowed it to happen, which is pretty surprising. Cersei hates and fears Tyrion more than anyone else in the world. You'd think she'd take the chance to kill him, but apparently Cersei decided she needs to make peace with Daenerys to beat her in the long run. Cersei tells Jaime that she's pregnant, and the twins share an emotional moment, which Cersei immediately exploits to tell Jaime to never betray her. So this is some classic emotional manipulation from Cersei, using a tender moment for strategic gain. But there's also probably some sincerity here. Cersei's pregnancy might help explain why Cersei went from wanting to fight to the death to wanting peace within one episode. She has a child to protect now. But the pregnancy also raises some questions. Maggie the Frog predicted that Cersei would have 3 children. A 4th child would go against that prophecy. In the show, Cersei did have a short-lived baby with Robert, so maybe that number's out the window anyway. But still, it would be weird if Cersei had another child. Maybe she'll die before it's born. But if the Valancourt theory is true and Jaime kills Cersei, would he kill his own unborn child along with his twin? This baby raises the stakes. At Dragonstone, Jon meets Gendry. Gendry's father Robert and Jon's supposed father Ned were close friends, and their bond inspires a friendship between Gendry and Jon. Gendry's keen to join the fight against the dead, which is a little surprising given that he has no experience with White Walkers or with the North, but Gendry has seen some mystical shit, what with Beric and the Red Witch, so it's plausible enough that he believes in the dead, if it gives him something to swing at. Tyrion farewells Jorah, and hints at their rocky past. Remember that one time Jorah dwarf-napped Tyrion? And Dany farewells Jorah for the umpteenth time, maybe for the last time. And finally, Dany farewells Jon, with a longing gaze. It'd save a lot of hassle if these guys just admitted that they want a bone, because a marriage alliance between Dany and Jon would be hugely powerful. It'd clear up the problem of their competing claims on the Iron Throne, and they could rule together as king and queen. Chuck Gendry in there for a threesome, and you'd solve the whole succession crisis in one go, but might have to leave that for the fanfic. At Eastwatch, Jon forms the greatest squad of warriors Westeros has ever seen. There's Jon Snow, the White Wolf, the resurrected king in the north, Gendry, the bull, bastard son of King Robert, Thoros, the Red Wizard of Myr, and Beric Dondarrion, the Lightning Lord, 6 times reborn. There's Jorah Mormont, Sir Friendzone, survivor of Greyscale, Tormund Giantsbane, husband to bears, Mead King of Ruddy Hall, and Sandor Clegane, the Hound, Gravedigger, and Eater of Chicken. It's an amazing team, which ordinarily would be impossible, because these guys are knights and wildlings, northerners and southerners, followers of the old gods and of R'hllor. There's a lot of bad blood here. Gendry was sold to Melisandre by Thoros and Beric. Beric was killed by the Hound, then resurrected. Tormund's people were hunted and killed by Jorah's father, Jorah Mormont. Any other time, these guys would be enemies, but because of the threat of the dead, none of these grudges matter anymore. Which kind of says it all about this new season. There's no time for the complexity, the history, or the logistics. The story is hurtling towards its climax. There is something lost when the show moves so fast, but it is a lot of fun to watch. The heroes step beyond the wall to face the night. This scene when Cersei made Sansa write a letter against the Starks is a really interesting chapter of the Game of Thrones books. It shows how naive and trusting Sansa once was, and how manipulative Cersei is, using love to assure loyalty, just like she does with Jaime this episode. You can listen to this chapter on audiobook for free today with our sponsor Audible, by signing up for a trial at audible.com/ASX. You get a free audiobook to keep even if you cancel the trial, and it helps out this channel, so sign up at the link below. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the translators for translating captions, and thanks to patrons Kara Shutter, Valentin Deegan, Disco Dan, Gerald Callahan, Bruno Zorzi, and Samantha Suave. Cheers.